Hi, and in this quick video I want to explain a little something about how professions will work differently in Legion and about the Obliterum Forge in particular. I'm going to round off with some examples of some of the more interesting crafted items from each profession in case you're still undecided which will be best for you. There are a lot of changes to the way professions work in Legion compared to previous expansions. We swing away from being able to carry out your professions without having to leave your garrison in WoD to having to really sing for your supper in Legion. For a start, we get most of our recipes from doing quests, some of which involve a dungeon run. We get a series of quests as we level up in order to learn a few basic craftable items, and then more quests at level cap. Some patterns even come from world quests. Before I go over the general concept of crafting equipment, a word on the tomes and codices needed for changing talents outside rest areas. These are random drops that you can get on any character but are not BOP. This means that if you, like me, have a scribe, but they're not a high priority alt in the early stages of Legion, you can pass the pattern on to them. As is typical of the initial equipment that you'll be able to craft, it's not really intended to be used by your main characters, it will be too low item level. However, it has the chance to randomly upgrade from blue quality to epic for plus 10 item levels. When you learn how to craft the gear designed for level cap, which has 815 item level by default, you can manually upgrade this into what will be very desirable pieces at the start of the expansion. This uses the Obliterum Forge, but will not necessarily be cheap. To be able to use the Obliterum Forge, you will have a quest chain to complete which triggers when you first enter Dalaran at level 110. An early stage involves acquiring some of the 815 item level crafted bracers in all 4 armor types. You may need to get these from the auction house or trade with other crafters for items of the same value that you can produce. I'm going to guess they're going to be quite expensive to begin with, but this is a fairly lengthy quest chain. Maybe if you wait a bit they'll come down in price. The quest has a number of steps, some of which can be a pain. Don't expect it to be completed quickly unless you're really going at it and prioritising your skill with professions over everything else. Once you have access to the Obliterum Forge, you can use it to break down crafted items. Any crafted item may be obliterated, even enchants. This yields a random amount of Obliterum ashes, which can also vary according to the quality of the item. Combining 100 Obliterum ash, currently with 2 Bloods of Sargeras, will allow you to make Obliterum. Major sources of Blood of Sargeras are from gathering, including disenchanting, as well as world quests and dungeons. They are BOP because Blizzard didn't want people making an army of alts to carry out the daily world quest for them in order to stockpile lots in a short time. One question I've been asked a few times is, do I need to have a gathering profession to get enough bloods, or can I go with 2 production trades? Naturally, you will get more bloods if you are active with a gathering profession, and remember that enchanting counts for this because you get bloods from disenchanting. That being said, you'll probably be running lots of dungeons, and Blood of Sargeras is not an uncommon drop from bosses. Unless you're going to go crazy serious with 1 production trade, you won't need a gathering profession on your main. It will help to have it on an alt if you want to avoid being at the mercy of unpredictable auction house prices, however. Once crafted, Obliterum may be used to upgrade an eligible piece of crafted gear by 5 item levels. You can currently upgrade in this way up to 850 item level. However, as was the case with WoD upgrades, I imagine this limit will be raised with the introduction of each new tier in Legion. So what I'm going to do now is go over my picks of the crafted items for each production trade. If you want to see a more complete range, Wowhead is a good place to go, and I'll link their overview page in the description below where you can click on individual professions. I'm not going to cover any secondary professions as you don't need to make choices with those, but they definitely have some interest to them, including cooking giving you some buffs which will be useful in solo play, as well as the usual stats for raids and dungeons. Archaeology also has a mount and some pets. As usual, alchemists will be making your flasks and potions, and can also make themselves a nice trinket. But there are a few weird and wonderful concoctions this time as well. For me, the pick of the crop would be the Sylvan Elixir. This effectively gives a buff to your group which adds plus 10% stats for an hour, though it's lost on death. Cauldrons are also back, and are bind on account, so you can make them on one character and pass them to your main raiding character. As you'd imagine, blacksmiths can make relics for your artifacts as well as plate armor sets. They can also make a mount, but one really interesting item that can be made fairly early on are hoof plates. One type gives you a plus 20% mounted speed on the Broken Isles and doesn't cost very much at all, and another lets you interact with things without being dismounted but uses the more expensive materials. They can be freely traded to other players, but blacksmiths get a much greater duration out of them. Although enchanting still does what it always did with some new pets and a toy thrown in, there are only a few slots that can be enchanted for combat benefit in Legion. There are a few that are useful in other situations though. This includes glove enchants to improve the speed of gathering, including mining, skinning, herbing, and even surveying for archaeology. But in Legion it's neck enchants that provide some really interesting bonuses. Don't forget that disenchanting can produce Bloods of Sargeras. For engineering, there is a new Jeeves type character called Reeves. This can be installed with different modules for a variety of functions, including mailbox mode, repair mode, wormhole generator mode even, and fireworks mode, presumably for when you finally down that boss that took weeks of wiping. This one seems to be disposable, but doesn't appear to be that costly to make. Scribes can make a few items of novelty value, but in terms of the useful ones, can make Vantus runes. These are new for Legion. You can only use one of these a week, and it gives you a damage boost against one particular boss for that week. Useful when you're going to be tackling progress on a tough boss. There's also the usual Darkmoon Fair trinkets, and the tomes and codices for changing talents that I mentioned at the start. As usual, jewel crafters can make rings and necks, as well as gems for sockets of course. This includes aligning class-specific necks of variable benefit. Some will find that theirs provides some potential use, whilst others will not find them so beneficial in a lot of situations. In Legion, jewel crafters also get to make lockpicks, muscling in on territory of blacksmiths of old. Leather workers get to make a mount and the usual leather and mail armour as you'd expect. They also produce barding, which prevents you being dazed while mounted in the Broken Isles. This is more useful than you might think, especially when racing towards the world boss before a group kills it. No drums this time from what I can tell, however. Last but not least, we have tailoring. As well as the usual cloth armour, they can also make a new bag, of course. However, this doesn't have a greater capacity than in previous expansions. It's only a 24 slotter, but the idea is that it's relatively cheap to craft, needing 90 cloth. One item of novelty interest, however, will be the clothes chests. You can set these out for your group along a number of themes, including the Karazhan opera theme here. One final point to make is that profession items have ranks in Legion, 1, 2 or 3 stars. For production trades, better ranks make the items cost fewer materials. For gathering trades, it means you get more materials. Gathering allows you to potentially obtain Bloods of Sargeras from rank 2. And that's my quick rundown of professions for Legion. I hope you found it interesting as always. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and share. And until next time, I'll see you later.